Hi everybody, my name is Cheyenne. Welcome to my channel. This is my first video, so I'm a little nervous to say the least, but maybe this time, first time's a charm, right? So this is a very difficult story that I'm going to tell you. It happened 14 years ago in Paris, March 31st of 2008 at 11 p.m. I do want to give a trigger warning because it does involve violence, it does involve drugs, it involves alcohol, it involves a very traumatic fall from a window and the aftermath of that. So please feel free to click out of this video if this is triggering for you. But if you do choose to stay, this is my story, and this is how I survived almost being murdered by the person I loved the most. So it all started in 2005. I grew up in Florida, and I had written a screenplay, and I had invited my mother from Paris to direct this independent film that I wanted to make. And I was so proud of this screenplay and I wanted to star in it, but I was missing a leading man. And one day, let's call him Max. I met Max and we had this instant chemistry. And I have to say that it was physical at first, but then after a few days and after we started filming, he sort of figured out what my vulnerabilities were. And because I had grown up in Florida and he hadn't, I knew many people. So he kind of used my sense of grounding that I had there, and the fact that I had so many different connections from middle school, high school, different jobs I'd had. And so he kind of brought me down the rabbit hole with him. And we started drinking heavily. At the time, I was very depressed. For another story time I will get into later, someone very dear to me had just left. I felt alone. I was with my mother, who was at an all-time low, mentally and emotionally. And so with Max, I just felt like I could forget everything. And so it started with drinking, and then it started with drugs. To be specific, it was a lot of pills, a lot of Xanax, a lot of Oxycontin, Percocet, Valium, and then it just became a nightmare when cocaine was introduced to the story. And that was the turning point. But I was in love. I mean, I was really in love. And I believed he was in love with me too. And we had filmed this movie together. We had completed this project. And afterwards, we both thought, well, now what? So we decided to go to Thailand. And in Thailand, he again was pursuing the nightlife there. Needless to say, I overdosed in Thailand and told him, this lifestyle needs to stop. I can't do this anymore. And he agreed. He promised me that he would stand by my side, that he would be my number one, that he would support this decision 110%. So we had talked about marriage. At this point, we had been together for almost 2 years. And we decided to travel a little bit around Europe, and we went to Spain. We had a wonderful time. He kept his promise. And then we got to France. We got to Paris. And the idea was to get married there. So we found a little apartment on the fourth story of this old building. It was in a not so good part of town, but it had its charms. And this is when I saw the side of him that I had never seen before, which was drinking whiskey all day, unbelievable anger, putting me down, gaslighting. I was sinking into a deeper and deeper depression. And then the pills and the cocaine were brought back into the equation very quickly. I would spend my days in bed crying. I didn't know what to do. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. And I was lying to everyone, my family and my friends, because I didn't want them to judge me. I thought that I would be somewhere else at this point in my life. I didn't think that I would be in a small apartment with this man that I loved, but who treated me like I was his annoying little sister that he needed to take care of. I felt like an obligation. I didn't feel like a human being anymore. I felt like a burden, like an animal that you no longer want. One night on March 31st, things took another tragic turn when, after drinking nonstop, and he was also online gambling at night, which was terrible because we would find ourselves at the end of the month without money to pay our rent because he had lost it all gambling. That night, he drank more than usual, and he started to be verbally abusive with me and then physically abusive with me. He grabbed me by the neck, he slammed me against the wall and started choking me. I was screaming, and luckily enough, I was able to get out of his hold, his grip, and call my brother, who lived in Paris. My brother came to the apartment. He calmed Max down. He said, "Max, if I have to come back here, I'm going to come back here with the cops. Don't make me come back here." And he decided that we would kiss and make up. It was just a bad moment, and he left. But unfortunately, there was no kissing and making up, because I started to drink and drink more and drink more, having dark thoughts. And I thought to myself, this is the end. Max had been talking about leaving. He wanted to go back to America and just abandon me there when I had followed him. I had agreed to go down that rabbit hole with him, even though I knew it was wrong, even though I knew it was dangerous. And I was lying to my parents and the people that I loved the most, which is not the person I was. I was never that person. So after my brother left, Max kept drinking. I was drinking in a corner crying. And I took a couple sleeping pills because I just wanted to sleep. I wanted to sleep for 3 days, not think about anything. And I also wrote an email to my mother just expressing how alone I felt, how depressed I was, and that I was just over everything. It felt hopeless. It was a desperate situation for me, and I just wanted to sleep. My mother was still in Florida at this time, and when she read that email about 5 minutes after I had sent it, she got a huge migraine, and she felt something was wrong. So she called my cell phone. No one picked up. She called Max's cell phone. No one picked up. She felt something was wrong. So she called her friend who lived in Versailles, which is not too far from Paris, who drove down to the street we lived on. Now I'm going to have to pause you right here, and we're going to fast forward just for now. The last 6 months, I have gone through intense therapy. I have gone through hypnotism, and I have reviewed my hospital file and spoken with my surgeons. And this is the truth. What I'm about to tell you, this is the truth that I realized was what really happened that night 14 years ago. Now let's rewind back to that night. A taxi driver at around 11:30 stopped at a red light, and he saw a girl falling out of a 4th-story window. Now let me remind you that it's around 50 feet, which is really high. That girl falling out the window was me. I shattered my foot. I broke my femur in several places. I broke my pelvis in several areas. I had open heart surgery. I smashed my face into the sidewalk, and there was blood everywhere. When my mom's friend arrived, he said, "She's dead. She's dead." And my mom couldn't believe it. She didn't understand. But the police had gotten there quickly because the taxi driver that had seen me fall had called the police immediately in an ambulance. When I arrived at the hospital, there was no hope for me. The surgeon even called my mother and said, "She's not going to make it through the night, but I am going to perform this open heart surgery because it's my duty." And by some miracle, by the miracle of God, Buddha, the universe, Jim Carrey, whatever you want to believe in, I made it that night and I survived. But when I woke up from my week-long coma, I was told what had happened and I couldn't move. I was also told that I would never walk again. I was so scared. I didn't understand. But the narrative was, according to Max, that I had jumped. Now, mind you, Max had been arrested. The police didn't want to let him go because their initial thought was that he had pushed me in a moment of drunken anger and fury. My mother called the police and pleaded with them to let him go because she knew that I loved him. She thought he loved me. She thought he would never do this to her. But that's not what the initial response was from the police. That was not their narrative. Back at the hospital, this narrative was fed to me, that I had tried to commit suicide, that I had jumped out of a 4th-story window because I was too depressed and I wanted to end my life because Max would probably leave me. Now, I did relearn how to walk again. I was in a rehabilitation facility for about 6 months. I cannot tell you what a miracle it is that I am still here. It was the most excruciating experience of my life, for my family and my friends as well. Nobody thought I would make it, but I did. And it took almost 2 years for me to recover. 14 years later, after thinking my entire life preceding this accident that I had jumped, there was always a little voice in my mind that said to me, Cheyenne, you didn't jump. You would never jump. You're scared of heights. You had too much alcohol and pills in your system to even move, let alone climb over a 5-foot railing of a window and then jump, because I fell like a rag doll backwards, not forwards. So this was always in my mind, in the back of my mind. But I wanted to be brave. I wanted to be an example of someone that had survived a suicide attempt. And I just accepted it. And today, I am here to tell you that that is not what happened. That I was lied to, I was manipulated, and I was the one that had to suffer thinking that I had broken my own heart, had done this to myself and to my parents. After going through hypnosis therapy for 6 months, after having new documents sent to me from the hospital from 14 years ago, it is very clear to me now what the truth is. That Max, in a drunken rage, pushed me. I believe it. The hypnotists, the psychiatrists, and the doctors and surgeons that I have since spoken to that took care of me that fateful night in 2008 both think the same thing. They all think the same thing, that I was pushed, that I was almost murdered by someone that I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with, someone that I truly loved, that I had shared a huge, huge important part of my life with the script I had written. He had been my love interest on film and off, and I was ready to follow him anywhere. But today, I choose myself, and I'm not giving him the satisfaction of allowing me to carry that weight anymore. I hope that whoever is out there who is in an extremely manipulative relationship where there may be drugs involved, alcohol, gambling, violence. The first sign of violence is crucial because it mostly happens again and again and again. For me, it ended with me being pushed out of a 4th-story window and landing on concrete sidewalk. So, this is the first time I am publicly sharing this. This is my story, my truth, and I hope that some of you will be able to take something from this story. I thought I would never walk again. I thought I would never love again. I thought I would never trust again. But I believed in myself, and I pushed on, and I pushed on, and I opened my heart to the right people, and I no longer allowed myself to not follow my instincts and to betray the person that I truly am. I want to thank you all for watching. Please, if you like the video, hit the like button. I would really also appreciate it if you would subscribe because I have more story times to come. So your support would mean the world to me. I want to thank all of you so much if you've listened to the end of this video. Have a wonderful day, and I will catch you next time with another story.